So my main area of research, and the reason that I came to Paris as an international chair, is on swearing. So I started off by looking at swearing in American English, but then came around to also looking at the use of English swear words by non-native speakers of English or other speakers of English. And then after eventually coming to Sweden, I've been really interested in looking at how English swear words are used in Sweden, and how the system for swearing in English kind of works in tandem with the system of swearing in Swedish. So the first one was just kind of an introduction, just an assumption that maybe people listening are interested in swearing, but perhaps haven't researched it. So it was an introduction to the research on swearing, and I called this one the swearing paradox, because it had to do a lot with methodology. Like how do we, if you want to research swearing, how do you do it? What kind of methodologies are there? So something that I discovered kind of early on in my research was that there were two main methodologies that people were really interested in determining the offensiveness of swearing, but also the frequency of swearing. And so what I noticed was that the conclusions that were being drawn was that swearing is really highly offensive and also highly frequent. And I asked myself, how can that be? How can something that's super duper offensive also be really, really frequent? That just doesn't make sense. You know, if it's really offensive, it wouldn't be that frequent. If it's really frequent, surely the offensiveness would start to decline. So that's what I labeled the swearing paradox. There's something that just didn't jive there. And so early on, I discovered that, you know, what people were rating as offensive is not actually the kind of swearing that's really frequent. And the kind of swearing that's frequent, that people are seeing and counting all over the place, is not the kind of swearing that's offensive. So I thought it was important to point that out, that that there's some methodologies that are a little problematic, that have been problematic in swearing, that we can draw, you know, misinformed conclusions, or we can kind of cherry pick the conclusions we like and try to make this kind of sensational story out of swearing. So that was basically the first lecture. The second one was about folk linguistics, because swearing is something that that people, non-linguists, non-researchers, they love to talk about. Almost everyone has an opinion. Almost everyone has some kind of story. Lots of people have attitudes and rules and observations. So it's a subject that attracts a lot of people to engage in what could be linguistic analysis. But we call it folk linguistics because it's just, you know, the linguistics of the people. So looking at, you know, what do people think about swearing? What kind of assumptions do they have? What kind of attitudes? What kinds of beliefs? And most of all, what kinds of theories do people have? Like, what do people think swearing is about? And why people do it and what they accomplish with that. So kind of introducing the idea that swearing is not a subject just for the ivory tower. It's actually something that is really connected to people. And it's super important for researchers to keep in mind what people think about swearing, what they think swearing does, you know, their beliefs and attitudes, like I said. And then the third seminar was about the power of swearing. And swearing has all sorts of different powers, from physical to mental to rhetoric to social. There have been studies or experiments that show that it increases strength when you swear. It increases pain tolerance. It increases social bonding. It increases the power of your message. So there are many, many benefits to swearing, but it's also powerful in a negative sense. So you can really repel people and defend yourself and protest and get a lot of action done or stance taking done in a negative respect too. And it's actually the positive and negative power that creates this tension to swearing that is super important for keeping our swear words alive. If we don't have the tension, if we don't have this understanding for swearing can be good and swearing can be bad, and if it's only ever bad or if it's only ever good, then there's no variation, there's nothing exciting and nothing powerful or effectful about it any longer. And then the fourth one was about, actually kind of brings me back to the very beginning, looking at how English swear words are used by speakers of other languages. So the fourth seminar was about swearing in English in another language, and how English swear words might be disseminated into the world through popular culture, and how people pick up on that in other cultures and in other languages, and start to appropriate English swear words, and what they do with it, and what could that mean. If the rest of the world, the non-English speaking world, is using English swear words, what does that mean for the English speakers? What's happening to their swear words? And what does it mean for the language, the swear words of the other languages? How do they coexist? Yeah, so, that's just a fraction of the research that exists on swearing, but I had four occasions, and so that's what I chose to focus on. It was lovely. It was amazing, really. I had been to Paris a few times before, and it's amazing, it's lovely, it's overwhelming, it's beautiful. So I'm of course very grateful to my guest, Jonathan Ginsberg. It was so fantastic to talk to him, and I just want to say I'm so grateful for being invited as an international chair, because I realize that the kind of research that I do isn't exactly the kind that's done in Labex. So I don't really do a whole lot of experimental research. I don't have a lot of formal linguistics in the kind of studies that I do. So I was happy. I was really honored that that the people who invited me saw that there was some exchange that we could have, that I could learn from the kind of formal linguistics that they do, and they were interested in the kind of linguistics that I do. So it was really great to be exposed to the research that Jonathan has done and Heather has done, and then just meeting other people who have been or are connected to Labex, and just getting papers sent to me that I can read and find out what other people are doing, and how how there might be some opportunity for collaboration there. So just kind of expanding, if I'm allowed to speak, personally, what I gain from it. I'm hoping that other people gain something from me, but from what I gain, it's just expanding my own kind of horizons on, what could I do if I wanted to introduce more formality into my research. Whom could I look to for that? Who could guide me in that? And I think I found those people and made those connections.